So this is a follow-up to a video I made on the concept of a sequel to Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax, in which I talked about the idea of Kamijou Touma being a playable main. This video largely exists as a result of a brief conversation I had with a commenter called King Bushi, in which we talked about the Climax skills, which I'll get into later. In short, I thought it would be a fun talk because there are some neat hypotheticals I have to propose. Now, Touma is definitely somewhat of a challenging character to design because of how limited he is. He doesn't have any particularly flashy powers, no weapons to be used as accessories, and his trademark power is punching and blocking things with his right hand. Because of this, I think his basic attacks are definitely the least expanded in terms of potential and possibilities. His light, medium, heavy, and grabs would generally be pretty vanilla, with basic punches and kicks in accordance to their inputs. I think the most difficult area of his design would probably be the special attacks because, let's be real, there's really not a lot you could propose. The suggestion I gave in my last video was to have guest appearances launching their magic or esper attacks, similar to Quentar and his teammates. For instance, his 214 could include multiple katana slashes from Kanzaki, and his 236 could have one of the sisters shoot the opponent with a firearm. There are many other characters in this series you could come up with for special moves, and it's honestly one of the few ways I can imagine them customizing his special attacks that doesn't involve coming up with bullshit abilities that he doesn't have. Next, we have his impact skills, and this is where the character starts to enter the realm of uniqueness. My proposal would be to have his neutral AB, instead of being some sort of pressuring attack, it's instead a counter mechanic. Every time the opponent tries to hit them with attack, Touma uses his Imagine Breaker to cancel it out, pretty much working exactly the same way as his assist does. His down AB can have something similar to UI Gogo from Dragon Ball FighterZ, in which he dodges attacks by appearing behind the opponent. This is based on the precognition that has been implied several times in the series. Now, of course, this does come at the cost of not being able to use impact skills for combos, but I think that with the defense properties that it provides, it can be argued that it balances out. His impact break would work pretty much the same as everyone else's. As far as his trump cards, they would be the red ones, which basically means that it would be an offensive trump card that deals damage to opponent once you use them. It would pretty much amount to them recycling his attack assist. I have this idea of giving a special property to the trump card, which admittedly may or may not cause balancing issues, but what I had in mind was for them to make it so every time he hits the opponent with it, it nullifies their trump card if it's activated, which I think is a creative way of implementing Imagine Breaker to the game. If they have to, they can even reduce the damage input for balancing reasons, at least when they have the trump card activated, of course. But now I want to get something even cooler, which are his Climax skills. After talking to King Bushi, I think there are two ways you can design at least one of the Climax skills, preferably the right one. We both agree Touma would require his own unique meter for the dragons. Our first proposal is to have an 8-bar meter in which a single bar represents one additional dragon that will show up on his hand during the Climax skill animations, and the amount you gain will determine the amount of damage that you can inflict. There are many other ways you can set up the requirements for the bar gain. Maybe every time he does a specific type of attack or defense, it's all a matter of finding the right source. The second proposal, and this is the one that I came up with and I've had some time to reflect on it even further, which is to implement a meter that fills up every time you use Imagine Breaker to deflect attacks. Before he reaches its maximum, you can't use the main Climax skill. Of course, you can still use the alternative one, but the one involving the dragons will be unstable until the meter reaches its maximum. And once that happens, his right hand explodes and is replaced with 1, 2, or more dragons. In this state, he cannot deflect attacks anymore, but he does have offensive impact skills, which can be attacks derived from the dragons. And of course, you can finally use the main Climax skill with the dragons, and once you do so, the meter resets to 0. You can no longer use the Climax skill until the next time it reaches its maximum, and you can deflect attacks once again. I'm of course speaking theoretically. I'm not entirely sure if this would work in his favor or misfortune, but I think they're fun ways of exploring the dragon Climax, which is something I initially boiled it down to just being normally functioning Climax skills, but I think this approach would make the character pretty unique. As far as the second Climax skill, I mean, I'd have it so Misaka or Accelerator tries to hit Touma with an attack and instead hits the opponent. But to be honest, this one is not too important to explore in this video because you can either give him the generic rapid attack spam, or you could give him something more unique, which would involve guest appearances from other characters, and the possibilities are endless to the point where I don't feel the need to dive into. I think these would be the general mechanics to implement. If you have any ideas, I'd like to hear them. In the meantime, I'll see you guys in the future. Goodbye.